What's something normal the rest of the world does, that Americans are confused by? Driving to another country in a reasonable amount of time. And not because you live close to the border. For example, where I'm from it takes me 30 minutes to drive to Slovakia, 45 minutes to drive to Hungary, an hour to drive to the Czech Republic, 2.5 hours to drive to Slovenia, 3 hours to drive to Germany, 4 hours to drive to Italy and 6 hours to drive to Switzerland, Oregon, Liechtenstein. It's pretty common to make a day trip to Hungary or the Czech Republic to go shopping because groceries are much cheaper there. I had a visiting professor from Hungary. At the end of the year, he solicited suggestions, as he was going to drive all around the USA for the summer. I of course said to see the Grand Canyon. He informed me he had scheduled an entire day to drive around the outside. I said you can't drive around the outside in one day. It's too big, and there's no bridge across it. He asked how big is it? I said like 250 miles or something. A 3-second pause, and I knew exactly what was coming next. What's that in kilometers? I said, yeah, it's like 400 kilometers. He says you have national parks bigger than my country. I said in America, 100 miles is a short distance and 100 years is a long time. I bought one a few years back but never got around to installing it. Use more of a portable method. But when COVID hit and TP became scarce, my cousin said we should get a bidet. I said, oh, I have one. You have one, they said. Sure, it's still in the box. I brought it out and put it on the counter and there it sat. They would rather buy overpriced TP at a liquor store. Using an electric kettle to boil water. Edit, for the few Americans trying to say this isn't true. The UK, population 60 million at the time, bought 7.5 million kettles in 2012, sorry, couldn't find supertescent sales stats, and that's after a drop in sales thanks to coffee machines. Comparatively, the US, population 300 million, bought 3.1 million in 2014, and that's while on a rising trend. They got up to 6.3 million in 2019. So yeah, 5 times the population, and less sales. And a survey conducted in the UK found ownership of kettles to be at 95% back then. So if the sales figures are reflective of that, then we can probably estimate, generously, that US kettle ownership is probably around 20%. What is this socialized healthcare? You mean getting healthcare doesn't have to be tied to an employer? Sounds too progressive and dangerous. Better stick to paying 20% of my paycheck and still end up paying just slightly less money to see a doctor, pharmacist, and diagnostic. Just to be safe, let not include vision, dental, and hearing. Don't want people to get used to a high standard of living. Make those ambulances extra and charge for parking. Those are luxuries. TBF, it only really makes sense to compare countries that are culturally not too distant, and are on par in terms of economic development, otherwise the differences in those two things make the comparisons nonsensical. I.e., Japan, while highly economically developed, is vastly separated by culture. So many things that they would consider normal are nonsense not only to Americans, but to all of the West. Whereas, say, Uganda, is vastly separated in terms of economic development, and so things they would consider normal may not make sense in a comparatively richer, for the average person, country. 1 hour after noontime is written 1300 hours, even if it's pronounced 1 o'clock, or a calque of this in the local language. Midnight, written numerically and on digital clock displays, is midnight. It's only ever called midnight in spoken conversation, though. I've never met someone from any country besides the US who would be weirded out by what I just wrote. I have never met anyone from the US, except for current and former military and people who've spent significant time outside the US, who wasn't weirded out by what I just wrote. Many Americans are confused by the fact that other places have police forces that are largely unarmed. Guns are something that many Americans make a big deal about owning, but don't spend enough time learning how to handle them safely. Or even teaching our police forces how to handle them safely and accurately. Medical care as a human right is also something that Americans are confused by. The very idea that people have a right to be able to see a doctor or have a health problem without going bankrupt and possibly becoming homeless is seen as a sign of communism or Satanism or something else that is evil. I don't get it. My family has never owned guns. I don't know if I have ever locked my doors consistently, lived in 6 different states in the US, the only gun I have ever shot was in the military. The only time I have really felt unsafe was for a time after September 11, 2001. I think it is important to share information and break down stereotypes around the world. While there are horrible acts of violence in certain places, at certain times in the United States it is definitely not the norm. It is easy for all of us to make generalizations. Questioning our own bias is harder. I need to do a lot more questioning myself. The firearm that I carry isn't to make me feel safe, it's so I can, hopefully, keep people from dying if the statistically impossible happens and some whack job starts killing people and I don't die almost immediately, and I find myself in a position to end the threat. The guns I keep at home are so I can hole up, or possibly relocate and link up with like-minded individuals, and defend myself if my government well and truly turns against its people, which appears to be more and more likely with each passing year. I don't keep guns because I'm afraid for my safety. Their obsession with race and how it seems like having a race there is having a personality. I am Colombian, we are extremely diverse down here as well, but we never do that. We actually identify more with our region of origin. There are cultural regions here. Another thing is how necessary it is to own a car there. I am 27 and I still don't know how to drive, because I can either cycle or walk anywhere in my city. One positive thing though is that people are very open about emotions and how to have a decent treatment with people. Europe could learn a bit of that from them. Also, US Americans are way less pretentious and more down to earth than most Europeans. I feel like they are more relatable and not as snobby. As an American, it drives me nuts that we're on a system totally different from the rest of the world, and most of us Americans are too ignorant to know the conversions. That 80f-32 divided by 1.8, technically it is 9/5, but I always mix the two up when converting, so fuck it, 1.8 it is 26.6 c. Or that there is 2.2 pounds in a kg. Or 1.6 kilometers to a mile. That the metric system is unpredictable, even 1000 intervals that the rest of the world is on, and America is still on the imperial system. Why, America? WHYYYYYYY. Oh, and my boyfriend says, not leaving tip. Paying servers a livable wage. Doesn't happen here in the States. We are expected to tip our servers and that's their livable wage. Also, free healthcare. I need to go to therapy and actually go see a doc, but no insurance means no healthcare. Or you're paying an arm and a leg. Speak correct English. Universal healthcare. That the poor matter, that the middle class drives the economy, not the rich. That raw capitalism will destroy America, and we got a very early glimpse of how it will die on January 6 this year. Lack of equality and a widening gap between rich and poor, and a refusal of your leaders to fix the problem. America will go the same way Rome went. Internal corruption. They seem confused by many things that are pretty normal like universal health care which most first world nations have, with differences here and there but nothing like the absolute joke people from the States have. It is normal for me in Canada not to worry about any bills if I get sick. Also another basic stuff like gun control. It baffles me that you have to explain grown people that giving almost everyone easy access to weapons designed to kill at war isn't such a great idea. That active shooter drills aren't normal and your kid's mental and physical health should be more important than your need to cosplay a soldier and play tough. It is normal where I live not to find normal that kind of gun nonsense. We are a country of immigrants. I don't understand how this stereotype continues to be talked about. Are there a few who are self-centered and egocentric? Yes. But many of us know many things about different cultures. This also depends on what part of the country you are referring to. Some places are more diverse than others. Do people seriously not take their shoes off in their own houses? Like until they go to sleep they have shoes on? What I really want to know though is what you do in other people's houses, shoes or no shoes. I feel weird taking my shoes off in other people's houses. You gotta be a little more specific here. Do you mean the abortion discussion? School shootings? Parents not being able to pay for overpriced health care? Or immigrant children being held in concentration camps separated from their parents? Edit, I forgot starving children because of lunch debt. The whole knife and fork thing. The butter knife being used more than the fork. It's the same looking fork, but they use utensils differently. Perhaps it's just us wanting to shovel more food in our pie holes and that method wasn't as effective lol, or it's weird. I'm really not sure. I was taught to only use one utensil at a time and to keep my other hand in my lap unless I was using my knife to cut meat. Then pick up knife with dominant hand and fork with other. Cut meat. Put knife down. Switch fork to dominant hand. Use fork to pick up cut piece of meat. Repeat. When I went to England, knife and fork were both held continuously until meat was finished. Blew my mind. Are you a jobless teenager with bitterness towards your peers? Then look no further for a simple solution to your problem. Introducing the brand new low-income firing range. Come on down to your local high school for a violently good time. The city public school system cannot be held liable for any injury or death during your family-friendly fun time. Integrity is a foreign concept in America. I did a stint in Germany a long time ago. I was in the mall and unbeknownst to me 100 Deutsche Marks fell out of my back pocket. Some guy picked it up, called out to me, and said you dropped some money. I thought it was a trap so I said no I didn't and quickly walked away. Countries that don't have guns not in any type of bad way but how would you hunt like when you go to the forest and go try and hunt a deer how would you get the deer I could probably find this out with a simple internet search but it's always confused me like do you tackle them do you stab them is there some other type of weapon that you use or can you specially be authorized one by the government? I live in a small, conservative-dominated mountain town in Colorado, so I'm used to seeing people with handguns or huge hunting knives on their belt just walking through the Walmart or the park. The idea of people not having a weapon of some sort on them is actually foreign to me. Roundabouts. There's a new roundabout in my area and almost every time I use it someone else is confused. It pains me to see people think that they need to yield to incoming traffic when they're the ones in the circle, and then some people aren't even sure how to enter the circle so they stop completely even when it's clear. So annoying. Politics. There is no leftist party. There should be three main parties. The right-wing party which for us is the Republicans. The centrist who are the Democrats. And the leftist or socialist and communist party which there is none. The closest would be the Green Party. We also think that things like Medicare for all are socialist policies when they aren't. We also confuse social democracy with democratic socialism. For example, in other countries Bernie Sanders would be considered your run-of-the-mill social democrat. He wouldn't make national headlines unless he did something whack. He isn't a socialist, but because of our broken political system we think he is. Using one measurement system. Here in the US, we use the metric system almost exclusively for anything that can be measured in millimeters and the imperial system for everything else. It's like that scene in Moana - Babe, I can't concentrate when you're using two measurement systems at once, just pick one, pick one. Going directly to university after high school, if not a trade apprenticeship, and obtaining a degree that gets you a job. As an Australian, the American college thing in between seems strange. Why waste more years and money to major in something that sounds like a high school subject, and doesn't directly train you for a specialized career? What am I missing? I'm still a bit unclear on the purpose of college, though. In AUS the common pipeline is high school direct to university, where you gain a bachelor's or master's degree, ideally in something that directly skills you up for a specific career. I can't grasp the benefit in going to college first. What does this gain those who attend? It sounds like extra high school. Why not cut the middleman and go straight to university? There's a rational reason for there being a difference. US law requires eggs be washed before they can be sold to the customer. European law requires the exact opposite, that all eggs must be sold unwashed. This difference causes the refrigeration thing. The thin outer coating around the shell that seals it up airtight is water soluble. It's safe to keep the egg at room temperature only up until the point where it first gets washed. Once you wash the egg, it loses its airtight seal and salmonella can get in. Eggs bought in a European grocery store are safe to keep unrefrigerated at the cost of knowing they're unwashed and you have to wash them yourself just before you use them. Eggs bought in a US grocery store must be refrigerated, but you don't have to wash them before using them. I heard that in France a famous guy, forgot who, and his wife asked someone to take a picture of them. That dude got away with their expensive camera. In America, try that shit and if you don't get shot then, you're lucky. Another story I heard was that an actress from Europe came to my state in the 70s and left her baby outside of a building. We Americans view that as irresponsible parenting cause kids do get kidnapped a lot, also baby diddlers are a thing. This is mostly shit I heard from my mother. It confuses me. Using our bare hands to eat without cutlery. Our hands have been washed before we eat it, and it's much more enjoyable. The asshole host at a Miss Universe decades before asked the Philippines contestant, "Is it true you use hands to eat?" And that woman who eventually won Miss Universe asked him without waiting a beat, "Why, what do you use / do you use your feet?" She deserved that crown for that reply alone. Also saw a TikTok where a woman pointed out how Americans are disgusted by using bare hands to eat, and then the woman mentioned that Americans use toilet paper to clean their asses, while the whole world uses a bidet. On hindsight, maybe they're disgusted by eating food with bare hands because they use only toilet papers to wipe their asses. There's a rational reason for there being a difference. US law requires eggs be washed before they can be sold to the customer. European law requires the exact opposite, that all eggs must be sold unwashed. This difference causes the refrigeration thing. The thin outer coating around the shell that seals it up airtight is water soluble. It's safe to keep the egg at room temperature only up until the point where it first gets washed. Once you wash the egg, it loses its airtight seal and salmonella can get in. Eggs bought in a European grocery store are safe to keep unrefrigerated at the cost of knowing they're unwashed and you have to wash them yourself just before you use them. Eggs bought in a US grocery store must be refrigerated, but you don't have to wash them before using them. Are you a jobless teenager with bitterness towards your peers? Then look no further for a simple solution to your problem. Introducing the brand new low-income firing range. Come on down to your local high school for a violently good time. The city public school system cannot be held liable for any injury or death during your family-friendly fun time. Integrity is a foreign concept in America. I did a stint in Germany a long time ago. I was in the mall and unbeknownst to me 100 Deutsche marks fell out of my back pocket. Some guy picked it up, called out to me, and said you dropped some money. I thought it was a trap, so I said no I didn't and quickly walked away.